Hello, friends, and welcome to a very special Kings of Anglia live podcast. We don't do these very often because we like these to feel like a bit of an event. And in terms of events, you can't get much bigger than an Ipswich Town Norwich derby, the first one in almost 5 years. I shan't mention how long it's been since Ipswich Town last beat Norwich, of course. But with me, I'm Mark Heath, I'm your host as ever. With me, two of the four Kings, Stuart Watson, Rossi. AJ's got a note from his mum. He can't be here this evening. But boys, I'll start with you, Stewie. How are you feeling, mate? Because we've worked on this sports desk for a bloody long time. You've covered Ipswich Town since 2011, and you've never seen Ipswich Town win this fixture. There's my iPhone going mental. We've never seen Ipswich Town win this fixture, Stewie. How are you feeling?
I would say I'm 90% excitement, 10% nerves. That's probably where I'd put myself at the moment. Yeah, well, we're having lots of debates. We're going to be speaking to people involved with the Norwich side of things about how everyone's feeling with this one. And Ipswich are strong favourites for a reason going into this. If you think about it with your head, what is it, 21 points clear in the table, the way they're playing, everything, you can convince yourself that it's going to be an Ipswich win, but there's that little bit of nerves, little knot in the tummy that it still might not happen, and just how unbearable they would be up the road if that were to continue. But no, I'm looking forward to it. Of course, it's overriding feeling is excitement. It has to be.
Yeah, and Rossi, you're so young, you probably can't remember the last time Ipswich Town won this game. How are you feeling going into this one on Saturday?
Yeah, I was 12, boys. I was 12 years old when Town won a derby. I was there, so at least I experienced it. So at least I've seen Town win in the flesh against Norwich. But I'm excited for it. You know, it's been a long time coming. You know, we've been, separate in two different divisions before. You know, when Norwich are in the Premier League and we're in League One. Now we're both in the Championship. And yeah, I think Town fans are excited as well because it's going to be a packed Portman Road. We've got a decent manager for once, a decent set of players for once as well. So, yeah, bring it on. And, yeah, we've got a lot of great listeners and viewers right now who are excited for it as well.
Yeah, bring it on indeed. Right then, friends, points of order. This is how it's going to work. You can leave your comments. Rossi's going to bring them in as we go along, and we'll have a section a little bit later on where we maybe take a few questions and whatnot. We've got two guests, one from across the divide who we'll meet in a minute, and another one I'm quite excited about because he's literally the voice of Ipswich Town. Glenn Wheeler, he'll be joining us later on. We're going to do the Norwich side of things first, though, boys. So shall we dive straight in to our first guest? Let me give him a build-up. His name is Samuel Seaman. He is the Norwich City writer for the Eastern Daily Press and the Pinken and the Norwich Evening News. And he's joining us with a sense of trepidation, I think, this evening as we get set to talk about this game. You can see all the comments there flashing us up. So Rossi, shall we get Sam in and have a good old chat?
Let's do it.
Sam, how are you?
I think trepidation was probably the perfect word, to be honest. I am quite excited for the game, just generally, like looking forward to a derby. Obviously, it's the first time in a while, my first one covering one. So in that sense, just for the occasion, I'm looking forward to it. But I'm sure everyone connected with the fixture will understand why there's probably a little bit less excitement at the Norwich end of things than there is on the Ipswich side. Feels like you've both got sort of more to gain from the situation and also more to be positive about. So definitely more trepidation from me than there will be from you three. But I'm looking forward to the occasion to an extent.
Excellent. Well, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being brave and coming on. Sam, you say it's the first time you've covered this game. You were also one of these ones from the other side of the fence who's so young that you can't remember Norwich ever losing this game.
Yeah, so I started watching Norwich sort of around Christmas 2009 when, if I can mention his name, Paul Lambert was in charge. Norwich were on the way up from League One and Ipswich were in the Championship. So literally the first two derbies I ever saw, it was a 4-1 win for Norwich and then a 5-1 win at Portman Road. So it was a fairly cushy introduction as far as derbies go. And ever since then, yeah, like you say, I've not seen Norwich lose to Ipswich. I don't really know what the feeling's like to be on the wrong side of a derby, which is why I'm a little bit fearful going into Saturday, but also maybe I'm a little bit bulletproof in terms of the mentality. It feels like Norwich just can't lose to Ipswich, but I do know that's probably on the line more than it ever has been, sort of in my time watching football, and that's probably the scary element for me going to Portman Road.
I mean this as respectfully as possible as a colleague and a journalist, but I hope you do find out on Saturday what that feels like. Sam, what can you tell us then? Obviously, let's kick off. Mood in the camp, Norwich heading into this game, because from the outside looking in, it looked like Norwich are going to be pretty good this season. They started off well. Jonathan Rowe was banging in goals for fun. We know they've got Gabriel Sara, who's a really, really good player. And then it felt like the wheels came off a little bit. You lost to Leicester. There was that pumping at Plymouth.
Yeah.
Wagner's future looked in doubt. And obviously had the Delia thing not too long ago, having a go at the fans. Never a good look. Very similar to things we've seen here at Town in the past. But then recently, mate, there's been a bit of resurgence, hasn't there? One defeat in the last 6, 4 wins out of the last 6, winning midweek. So what's the mood like going into this one?
Yeah, I think it's probably not yet reached the levels that it was at the start of the season, like you mentioned, especially when you haven't got any sort of negativity and it's a fresh start. The way that was, it looked to Norwich fans like they were probably going to be in a bit of a promotion battle with Ipswich at the time, but the performances were matching the results at that time, and they were deserving the wins and the impressive wins and the amount of goals they were scoring. They were deserving it. They were creating plenty of chances, and they were exciting to watch. Whereas now, it feels a bit more like they've been grinding it out in recent weeks. The fixtures have been slightly kind to them. There's not been really the entertainment. There's been some real difficult games to watch at Carrow Road. So although the results have improved, and there is definitely more optimism than there was in that time just after Josh Sargent got injured and that Plymouth defeat that you mentioned, and quite a while of losses, and it felt like the win wasn't going to come. It has definitely improved from that time, but it's not really close to where it was at the start of the season for me. Although that Sheffield Wednesday game, although you have to probably take it into consideration that was against sort of a really poor side in Sheffield Wednesday, that was the best performance they've put in for a long while. So they'll be really pleased they've managed to hit that peak right before the derby. But I wouldn't say it's overwhelmingly positive. It's probably somewhere in the middle, which is, I think, what Norwich are as a team. To be honest, they're not really looking like they're in relegation trouble, not looking like they're going to threaten the playoffs. And I think fans at the moment are just coming to terms it's probably going to be a sort of middling finish.
Stewie, we've talked before about how there's been a lot of similarities between the language that our friends down the road are using at the Pink 'Un and language that we were using not too long ago. Sleepwalking into trouble, anger turning into apathy, pragmatic signings rather than exciting signings. Obviously, the similarity with the owners having a pop at the fans. It does seem, Stewie, doesn't it, that there's maybe something similar going on down the road at the moment.
Feels like it, doesn't it? And I think football tends to go in cycles. If you wait long enough, your time comes, and we've certainly waited long enough from an Ipswich perspective. It did feel sort of looking across the border to Norwich that certainly the national narrative was that, I know, they're a yo-yo club, and why don't they ever give it a go in the Premier League? And it almost became sort of taken as read that they would keep going up, and would there be a year where they could stay up? And I kind of thought, well, there might be a year where they don't go back up again. You can't, especially the budget that Norwich work on, you're not going to find a Timu Pukki every summer. You're not going to keep producing 2 or 3 homegrown talents every year. And when the parachute payments sort of eventually dry up, if they do, the way that the club is run, which I think is, to be applauded, there's a sort of sustainable nature of Norwich. A bit like Ipswich, when Marcus Evans' sort of money ran out, then you end up in this sort of treading water state. And maybe that's where sort of the Norwich cycle is right now. I don't know.
Yeah. So what has been going on at Norwich, Sam? Because again, from a distance, we've seen someone come in, an investor come in. We've seen the whole drama around Stuart Webber. There's obviously been the kind of Delia narrative as well. It's one of those things where it doesn't ever seem to be dull, at least.
Yeah, I think Stu hit the nerve really with the sort of complacency situation, and that was the way it was looked at externally in terms of, Norwich will just go back up. And I think actually, to a certain extent, they let that seep into the club a little bit. When you go back to last season, they got relegated and they had bounced. They'd obviously been promoted their last 2 seasons in the Championship, won the title in pretty dominating fashion twice. And then they went down, and I think there was a bit too much of an assumption that they would just bounce straight back up and that they would be fine. They'd lost Emi Buendia in that time. Teemu Pukki had got 2 years older from the last time they were in the Championship, and they had just finished with 22 points in the Premier League. But I think they almost let this perception that they were going to bounce back up seep into them a little bit. Then there was issues with sort of money. They spent quite a lot to try and stay in the Premier League last time, obviously failed miserably. And by Norwich's own standards, they now find themselves in quite a tricky financial situation. So they couldn't really spend much in the summer. And it's just all sort of flowed from that initial Premier League failure back in 2022. They've made it continually hard for themselves. And I think complacency is probably the word that sums up what's gone wrong behind the scenes. The good news for Norwich fans on that front is that the new sporting director, Ben Knapp, has just arrived. It looks like before too long, sort of speaking in the long term, Mark Astanasio will own the club. So that's a positive step if you're looking for a fresh start. So it looks like that complacency might come to an end sooner rather than later. But for me, that's what's got them into the situation that they find themselves in now. And there's probably too many problems to touch on within one sort of podcast appearance, to be honest. But it's, for me, as much off the pitch as it is on the pitch. It's not a quick fix, and it probably requires the sort of rebuild that Stuart Webber first created when he first came into the club, and that does take some time. So I think Norwich fans are now just adjusting to the fact that they have to be a little bit patient, and it's sort of how well they can survive and entertain fans on the pitch in the meantime.
We've been there, haven't we, boys? Right then, on the pitch then, Sam, how do you think Norwich are going to approach this game on Saturday? And can you give us a little insight into players that we should maybe keep an eye out for? We know obviously about Rowe, we know about Sarah, but any ones we should also be keeping an eye on and be wary of going into this game?
Yeah, I think in terms of how they'll set up, Wagner likes to sit in. I think he thinks that's where the strength is. Shane Duffy is a player who has probably been getting increasingly unpopular with Norwich fans at the moment, but Wagner is sticking with him game in, game out. And of course, he's somebody who it doesn't thrive on battles when it comes to pace, shall we say. So Wagner likes to have games where they can sit in and try and counter, but it's just whether weighing that up against Ipswich's goal scoring record this season, especially at home, it doesn't feel like sitting off and begging and hoping that they won't create chances would be the best approach. For me, that still feels like that might be what Wagner does, but they do have some decent counter-attacking options, so they probably could score a couple of goals even if they might concede 3 or 4. You've obviously mentioned Rowe, who just travels with the ball really, really well. He's ideal in the counter-attack. And what's changed, I think, what's aided a little bit of very, very cautious optimism going into the weekend is that Borja Sainz made his first start for the club on Wednesday, scored after 7 minutes, an absolutely fantastic goal, and then set up Ashley Barnes for Norwich's second goal as well. And he's somebody that fans have been absolutely crying out for to get an opportunity. He absolutely took that with both hands on Wednesday. And in a game where probably Norwich will be under the cosh for a significant amount of it, he's the sort of player that you think might actually spring into action and cause Ipswich a few problems on the counter. So that's somebody who maybe Ipswich fans won't be especially aware of, that I'd probably look out for. But there's also sort of the names that everyone will have heard. Gabriel Sara is one of them. He's absolutely capable of producing a magic moment that sometimes you need in a derby if you're sort of down on your luck, as Norwich are at the moment. But other than that, probably not too many threats. People might look at the sort of names they've heard of, like Ashley Barnes, but he struggled to make too much of an impact. Actually, sort of technically and tactically, to be honest, he's more of your cliched experience, dressing room player, and he hasn't really offered enough, I don't think, on the ball. So he's a player that maybe Ipswich fans are looking out for, that maybe they shouldn't be so concerned about. But there are definitely a couple that could hurt them in an attacking sense.
What was that last comment, Ross? You flashed up. I just think it's worth putting to Sam before we move on. I liked it. Chris Walkett. Sam, do you think we could turn Sam? He looks like the kind of lad that deserves to support a decent team. What are you saying, Sam?
I'm completely impartial these days, so I can't be turned in anyone's favour.
Fair enough. Before we get on to the obvious question I'm going to ask you, Sam, and another one there from our old mate Bono saying, respect to Sam for coming on and speaking so well. Good lad, respect. I'm going to ask you about Liam Gibbs, Sam, because there is a Suffolk boy in the Norwich side, in the Norwich squad at least, from just down the road in Bury. How's he been getting on? I saw there was something from the Pink 'Un last night with a chant inviting people who hated Ipswich to clap, and Liam Gibbs took part.
Yeah, I think for him, that's sort of, I mean, I understand it because obviously I am a football fan, and you look at it and you get sort of incensed by that sort of thing, but it's an easy win for him really to get the Norwich fans on side when at the end of the day, this is the club that he's playing for now. I think his whole family actually supports Ipswich, and he supported Ipswich growing up. So I'm sure hate is a bit of a strong word, and he probably doesn't actually hate Ipswich. But there is, I think Ipswich fans have taken a little bit of delight in how he's struggled, and Norwich fans probably agree with them to a certain extent. I don't think there are too many fans that believe he's a world beater or should be starting for Norwich. He is just a sort of stick to beat the Ipswich fans with the fixture coming up. I don't think he's a bad footballer. He's obviously 20 and he's still got a lot of time to improve. But for me, he's a bit, I was trying to think of another phrase, but sort of meat and potatoes. He doesn't have a lot of flair about him. He doesn't really feel like he's going to produce any magic moments, but he's a very David Wagner footballer in terms of energy, running. He works incredibly hard, and he is quite reliable, has a decent turn of pace, but he's not really threatened the starting 11 when they're at their strongest at any point since joining the club. Really, I think if you looked at him now as somebody who could progress, he would look like a really exciting sort of starlet, but the way that he plays football, I don't see him really taking it another level. I think he could be a decent championship player throughout his career, but he's not somebody that's going to become a star player at Norwich, in my opinion. And I think that's sort of the consensus of the fan base on him, to be honest.
Okay, we saw a couple of comments flashed up there as well, just reflective maybe of the view and the reception that Liam Gibbs might get at Portman Road on Saturday. Boys, before I ask Sam the big question, and we can let him get on with his evening, have you got any other questions for Sam?
I'm being a polite young man as I normally am.
Yeah.
I've just been nodding away, hearing stuff. I got this actual question from Alex here, not AJ. There you go, Alex. Give you a little wave. That isn't my question. Obviously, the big talking point is Brandon Williams as well, another former Norwich player, of course, a loanee. Obviously, ended not very good with him in Norwich. Obviously, he's always up for any game, but this one I'm sure he's going to be up for it. What's the Norwich view on Brandon Williams?
He divides opinion quite a lot, not just because of the sort of off-pitch antics and the way that his exit sort of played out. He just, I think, represents two different ideals quite a lot, especially at Premier League level. In the Championship, his technical ability is actually excellent when you compare him to a lot of the players at this level. But in the Premier League, he was starting ahead of Dimi Yanulis, who definitely has his pitfalls, but is one of the most technically strong players in that Norwich squad. So he was sort of, him versus Williams was sort of played off as a physicality and athleticism and fight versus technical ability, possession-based football. And the ones that wanted to see a bit more fight, that wanted to see a bit more aggression, wanted Brandon Williams to start, and the ones that wanted to see a bit more technical, entertaining football as they were used to under Daniel Farker probably wanted to see Yanulis in the team. So I think he divided opinion really quite a lot. You either sort of loved him or hated him if you were a Norwich fan at the time. I will say, having watched him for Ipswich a couple of times, I like him a lot more on the right-hand side. I don't really see who's led anyone to make a decision play him on the left-hand side, but that was where he spent a lot of the start of his career. I think he looks a lot more natural on the right. And at Championship level, he's actually a really astute signing from Ipswich, I think, and a very good player. But yeah, he's definitely somebody who I think will thrive in a derby atmosphere, and somebody who likes a little bite, because there were a couple of those with the Norwich fans when he was a Norwich player. And, you know, I'm sure we're all aware there's been a couple since he became an Ipswich player as well. So, yeah, definitely an interesting player and one that divided opinion at Norwich.
Talking of bites on social media, Sam, who do you think will start on that left side? You mentioned Sainz doing so well in midweek, but it's usually Onel Hernandez on the left-hand side, and he's had a few things to say about Ipswich over the years on social media. He will be directly up against either Brandon Williams, who we've just mentioned, or Harry Clark, who's an Ipswich lad, equally fiery on his day. So I'm interested to know who you think will start on that left for Norwich.
Yeah, I did wonder where it was going when you mentioned social media, and then as soon as you said Ono Hernandez, it all became clear. I think he's actually deleted his TikTok in like the last couple of weeks, so I don't know if that was timed for these purposes. But I'd say, well, he's sort of a Wagner favourite is the thing that throws it into doubt. I don't think he hasn't scored at Carrow Road for something like 4 years. He's done a little bit better on the road, but he hasn't really produced the sort of numbers. He's not really produced on the pitch enough to warrant maybe some of his online antics, to be honest. But he is a Wagner favourite. He's probably a bit stronger defensively than Sainz is, and he fits the profile in that sense. But if your winger scores and assists in a 3-1 win 3 days before a derby, I think it would be incredibly harsh to drop Sainz. But then Wagner just throws some unbelievable curveballs with the team selection at times. So I wouldn't rule out Hernandez starting. He'll almost certainly come off the bench. So he'll probably feature and get a little bit of stick. I think a little bit might be kind, but definitely get some stick off the Ipswich fans. But I would say if I had to put my money on one of them at the moment, I'd say Sainz, and that's probably where a lot of the hope is coming from for Norwich fans going into it.
Okay, speaking of hope then, Sam, shall we do the big question? Now, I listened to the Pink 'Un podcast earlier, which I must say, friends, if you're looking for a kind of balanced, sensible discussion from a Norwich point of view around the game, very much worth listening to. You also get to hear about 15 minutes of me grinning my way through how great Ipswich Town are. And there was a lot of chat on there. It got quite optimistic towards the end, Sam. You were talking yourself into a bit of a frenzy. Township, a lot of goals at home. Norwich score a lot of goals away. There's going to be gaps. There's going to be opportunities. So what are you saying? What's your prediction heading into this game?
Yeah, I'm trying to be positive. It does feel quite weird. A situation where being whipped into a frenzy is going for a draw against Ipswich Town.
Yeah.
From a Norwich City perspective, that does. If you had put that to a Norwich fan 2 or 3 years ago, I think they would have been very surprised. But yeah, I think the only way you can really go into a derby is to try and be positive. You guys experienced a little bit before we came on camera that I'm sort of up and down a little bit with how I'm feeling at the moment. But yeah, while I'm here, I may as well be positive and say to all. Paddy said that on our podcast. I sort of wanted it really, but I didn't want to go for the same prediction and copy him. So now when I get the chance to predict as I want, it feels like the best way for Norwich to get a result out of it is for it to be a bit of a crazy game. So 2-2 seems like the most likely way to keep the sort of 15-year record intact.
And that, as Connor was saying, is basically kind of a moral victory. You retain the ashes if you come away with the draw, sort of thing. One more question then. If it is, as perhaps the stats suggest, an impressive win for Town, what does that mean for Wagner? Is there any chance that they lose heavily and he's out the door?
I would be surprised. I mean, they lost 4 in a row and he managed to keep his job. There was the strange sort of handover period between Stuart Webber and Ben Napper when no big decisions could really be made, which, you know, I think you can make your own minds up as to the sensibility of that. But yeah, it just feels like if he got all the time through there, that he'll probably manage to survive this one. Maybe when you get the other side of Christmas and all the hectic schedule and the number of games coming up, then there's an opportunity for his position really to be assessed in the long term. But I'd say just from the messaging from the club and the amount of support that there is for him internally at the moment, it would feel strange if this result triggered that sort of getting rid of him. But I think a lot of Norwich fans would probably see that as the upside of losing the game. Some of them are, given the mood there is towards him still, some of them I've spoken to have actually said that they might need to lose to Ipswich to make some people sort of wake up. So that will definitely be an interesting thread to follow. But just based on my feeling at the moment, I don't think it would spell the end for Wagner.
Okay. Anything else for Sam, boys, before we send him on his way?
Bring it on.
Sam, thank you so much for joining us, mate. I appreciate it's probably been a little bit of a challenge coming on a somewhat upbeat, shall we say, Ipswich Town podcast ahead of the game.
That's right. I think it's made your viewers a bit kinder to me, so I don't really mind.
We see there David W saying, thank you, Sam. Good to hear your views. Good balanced analysis. Sam, thanks for your time, mate. We'll see you at Portman Road on Saturday, and I genuinely mean this. May the best team win. We'll see. Yeah. We'll see what happens. Thank you, Sam.
Yep. Cheers, boys. See you there.
Cheers. Take care. There we go then, boys. That was good, wasn't it? A nice balanced view from the Norwich side. There is definitely a kind of groundswell of little optimism I've noticed from listening to the Pinken podcast and maybe seeing some tweets that they think, why not? Why can we not go to Portman Road, and all the pressure's on town and that kind of stuff. Ross, thank you very much. Yeah, that's the DeLorean there, mate. If you can see, I think I've shown this before, but the flux capacitor fluxes as well. I'm so cool. Friends, shall we have another guest in? Hi, Mark. Evening all. The next guy we've got on, next special guest, and I don't get to say this very often, is the voice of something, the voice of Ipswich Town, Glenn Wheeler. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Hello, gents. How are we all? Hello, everyone. All good?
Good evening.
Thanks very much, Glenn, for waiting in the virtual green room, and thanks also for putting all your Christmas decorations and a George Hirsch shirt up behind you.
Well, absolutely. You've got to come onto these things prepared, haven't you? So
yeah, absolutely. So for those of you who don't know, and I'm sure pretty much all of you do watching this, Glenn is the voice of Ipswich Town. He's the commentator for Town TV. You hear his voice across the world when you're watching Ipswich Town, which is quite the thing. And I've got quite a lot of questions to ask you, Glenn, around this, because I find this fascinating. But first of all, I guess, tell us a little bit about you and how you've come to sit in that seat and commentate on these games.
Yeah, it's all been a bit surreal, really. I think, set off in sport, started in sport, wanted to be a professional sportsman in the realm of cricket, and then that wasn't ever going to kind of materialise. So the next best thing was, okay, let's cover sport, much like you guys do. And then at sixth form, secondary school, sixth form, university, moved towards that kind of broadcast media element. Started doing some bits at university, doing commentary for Portfolio, etc. And it just dropped out of it. It was kind of university finished. It was a case of actually, I've got to get a real job now, and then go from there. And then COVID hit and the world turned upside down, and there was an opportunity to do some stuff, commentary from home, ultimately, that I got into. And then it was the strangest thing. I can remember it. I was in Tallinn in Estonia for a work event for my actual day job. And next thing I know, I've got a message on my Twitter and on my LinkedIn asking what my plans were for next season. So that was March 2022. And fast forward almost 2 years later, here we are, getting to enjoy what is an incredible privilege, commentating on the most marvellous Ipswich Town team.
Yeah, and as times go, Glenn, to join and start commentating on games, your first season was last season. Couldn't have been much better, could it?
Yeah, it was pretty special, wasn't it? I think the thing is, the first instance I got of kind of watching Town under this new ownership was Paul Mariner Day. Back at the end of, was it the 21-22 season? Obviously, the club had been in touch and inquired about what I was planning to do for next season. I told them nothing. And I thought, well, let me get down to Portman Road because it had been a while and, see what this club's all about. And I'm just down the road in Colchester. So I knew kind of the story of Ipswich Town and those kind of doldrum years of, those struggling years. And attended Paul Mariner Day, and it was just electric. I remember going to Portman Road and thinking there is something building here. There was a tangible kind of feeling of there is a club on the rise. There is, a club awakening from its slumber almost. And then, the journey since has been quite incredible. And, it's not just obviously the fan, it's not just the players and the club staff that obviously are extremely talented, but you've got an extremely talented group of people working behind the scenes. Certainly the media staff that I get to work with on a weekly basis, very talented, very hungry, very, very good at their jobs. But also the fan base, it's been so welcoming, and it's had such a community feel about the club. And I think that is, a message that the club puts out through not just obviously, people flooding to Portman Road on the match day, but you've got the fantastic work that the foundation does as well. It just feels like a community family club. And the welcome since has been great.
You mentioned that the great media team. Andy Warren's a bit dodgy though, isn't he? A bit of a shambles.
Yeah, it's been great having Andy with us. Obviously I became aware of Andy working with you guys last season, and kind of watching the podcast and swatting up on all things Ipswich during my prep. But to have Andy join the club, it's great to work with him.
Superb. Well, obviously get your questions in for Glenn. There's one here actually. Mark Jubb says, has Glenn been practicing the wait is over, bragging rights belong back in Ipswich for the end of the match? Now this actually comes into a question I was going to ask you anyway, and we're jumping ahead, but we might as well ask it now. Do you have, Glenn, when you go into a game, do you have little lines stored in your head that you think, God, if this happens, that would be an absolutely cracking line if I could remember it or write it down or whatever?
So I never really script anything other than kind of the introduction to each game. Players walk out the tunnel, the introduction is scripted, and that really is the only part that I will kind of jot down on paper. There were a few lines in your head, and you're kind of playing off things like the English language. Really, you're thinking of alliteration, and you're thinking of stuff that might have a nice rhythm, that might fit in nicely. But you can never plan ahead. Like, obviously, I'll take Tuesday night as an example. Sam Morsey obviously scores that goal, which, as the statisticians know, that's the 100th league goal that Ipswich have scored in 2023. But you can't just drop that statistic in. You're so guided by the actual moment and what you're witnessing and what you're feeling that you can't really script the actual moment, if that makes sense. You can have the ideas, and don't get me wrong, there have been a few that I've had and have used. But you have to kind of, it's a combination of factors. It has to feel right. It has to fit. Otherwise, it all just ends up sounding a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, just flash that last question up, Rossi, because that was a good one from Rob, was it? Rob Hughes says, must be incredible to have your voice forever associated with some marquee moments for Town in the past 18 months. Are there any that kind of stand out so far? I mean, there's been a lot of good goals and a lot of big wins. Yeah,
it's like I said, it's been a bit of a blur, really, and this is what happens. I'm sure you guys can appreciate working in football. The weekends and the match days pass through so quickly that a game that happens 2 months ago, 3 months ago, all of a sudden you can absolutely sometimes forget what goes on. And I think that's especially, I find it in my role as well, kind of being so focused on the actual moment in a game. Sometimes I can go through a game and forget what happened 5 minutes into the game, because you're so focused on that moment and having to describe at that moment that you don't necessarily see the bigger picture of the game during the match. But in terms of moments, look, that Barnsley away game at the back end of last season was just incredible. I think that the whole Ipswich performance, from not just the players out on the pitch, but from that packed out away end of 5,000, that was a very, very special evening. And I know that the Hurst goal has done the rounds a little bit. I know people, enjoy my voice breaking in that clip. But yeah, I mean, again, Exeter, back end of April, what a special day that was. I mean, I don't think anyone who was at Portman Road that day will ever forget that. Whether it be the bus welcome or just 90 minutes that just passed like a whirlwind. But even, going back, I think that whole period, probably last year of March to April, where you had the big away wins at Bolton, Derby, Peterborough, Barnsley, that was a real, brilliant few months, actually, because I think there were a heck of a lot of nerves going into those months, looking at those tricky away days and thinking, this is probably where, you know, Ipswich's season is going to be decided. You know, will it be automatics? Will it be the playoffs? And the way that the team just churned out result after result during that period was, you know, that was, I think, when you were kind of sitting there realizing that you were watching a very, very special team.
I'll just ask you one more question because I saw it flash up from Callie there, which was, and a good evening, Callie, good question, which is, have you got a favourite game to commentate on so far? And then, boys, I'm going to let you ask a few questions because I'm talking a lot.
Favourite game to commentate on? I think it was probably the Exeter game.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the first game where there were genuine butterflies in the stomach at the start of that one. You know, it was the only game last season where I was kind of sat there in the commentary position alongside Westy going, okay, this feels a bit different. And trying to calm those nerves ahead of Saturday, because I think Saturday might have a similar feel in terms of from that professional perspective. But that Exeter, that whole day, you know, it was great because I managed to get my dad along as well. So we'd enjoyed the kind of morning together and brought him to Portman Road. And yeah, to kind of have those nerves, but then to watch that performance. And Ipswich blew Exeter away. And I don't think anyone going to the ground that day expected that. I think we were all kind of going to the game. We're all football fans. We all know that football very rarely follows the script. But I don't think that Exeter game, you could have written a script like that. You know, it was one of them, and that was very, very special indeed.
Boys, you got any questions for Glenn?
And we're live, Stuart Watson, and he's muted.
Oh dear.
I'll try again. Sorry. My question is inspired by the man below me, Roscoe, who famously struggles with player pronunciations. Glenn, have any player names flummoxed you at all so far? How much do you have to practice them in the mirror? Some particularly tricky foreign names?
Yeah, there's some difficult ones. There's a lot of scratching around YouTube and the web sometimes trying to find just a clip of someone having a name pronounced by another commentator or something like that. Or, you know, sometimes when a club announces a new signing with a particularly tricky name, they'll even give you a real helping hand in terms of this is how you pronounce our new signing's name. Yeah, there aren't too many. Obviously, the whole Shawnee Aluko debate last season was fun. I did get the chance to sit down with, you know, I did a game I think with Shawnee last season. Did get the chance to ask him. He said Shawnee's fine. So I think it's consistency is the key. What you can't do is kind of change halfway through a game what's going on. I mean, we've had this. We were actually talking about this this week. Talking about Axel Tuanzebe. You know, a lot of people, Tuanzebe is what people have referred to him as. Yeah. But one of the guys in the media department at Ipswich dug out one of his announcement signings for when he was at Aston Villa, and it sounds very much like a Tuanzebe. So that's what I'm going to be sticking with from now on.
I think I'm right in saying, actually, the official BBC guidance on that is if you're unsure as to how to say someone's name, just say it with a lot of confidence, kind of bluster your way through it, and then people just assume it's right. Yeah. Any other questions for Glenn, boys? I've got a couple more, but let you get in as well.
Yeah, mine's been stolen by Stu, really, because obviously a lot of people know I can't pronounce anything, even English, you know, names I struggle with sometimes. But Glenn, I want to quickly, just your preparation, mate, because, you know, I just love seeing so many different commentators. You know, you got your felt tip pens, you know, making sure notes, like how much time do you know, prepare for all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot. Like I said, I've got a kind of day job, you know, a 8:30 till 5 day job. And then it is, you know, I'll get in from that and I'll take a bit of time to myself, but it's not unusual for me to kind of be working gone 10. It's just the rhythm that I get into, you know, and I think the great thing is that you don't see this as a job at any point. You know, you kind of settle down, you get into a zone and you're just learning about football. You're taking in everything, knowledge about football, which is a game that we all love, right? We're all passionate about. So it does, yeah. I mean, I have a pretty much a template for every set of notes that I do. And it's very much a front page with kind of key events that might happen, little ref scribbles on there. Then I'll have the kind of page where I do script that introductory piece when the players walk out the tunnel, followed by kind of a head-to-head record in terms of key games that have maybe happened, or, you know, what a certain run against a certain team looks like. And then one of the best things that I kind of learnt about early on in kind of my commentary career was the use of labels. I mean, they're absolute joy. So for Ipswich, start of the season, I've got kind of a prepared set which I print for every match day, and then we'll just add kind of relevant stats for each player as the season goes. So as the season progresses, the most time-consuming part is getting down the other squads. It would have been a lot easier had Ipswich stayed in maybe League One, because I would have had notes from last season that I could have gone back to. But so far this season, it's been getting used to a whole new set of squads and players. But I am looking forward to kind of second half of the season where I can regurgitate kind of all those previous labels, copy them down, and that'll take a lot less time. So yeah, that's the main kind of time-consuming piece, and then it's just a couple of pages on form, recent form for both sides, and what seasons look like in recent years. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it for each game.
I was going to ask you, Glenn, how surreal has it been seeing your commentary feature on the Ed Sheeran documentary on Disney Plus? I think that must have been a surreal moment for you.
Yeah, it's unusual, isn't it? And I think that just kind of comes into the whole place of where the club's at now. The club is in an unbelievable position. Obviously, Ed's a fantastic supporter. But the whole journey that the club is on is just terrific. From where it's come from in recent years under the new ownership to progress to this place where, everyone just wants to be at Portman Road every week. We go look at the recent international breaks we've had. We're going maybe 3 weeks without being at Portman Road, and everyone's genuinely missing being back in that corner of Suffolk. But yeah, I mean, it's ultimately, you don't do kind of the commentary to be famous. I think, some of the commentators I've spoken to, if you're doing it for that reason, you're in the wrong job. Ultimately, the reason I do what I do is because I love watching football, and I actually enjoy the art of commentating and describing the action, and bringing it to kind of people who aren't fortunate enough to actually be at the ground where the game is being played. So yeah, it's a bit surreal, but like I say, it's not something really I actually focus too much on.
That's a really good question from Adi, just flashed up. Which commentator did you like, or commentators, I guess, when you were growing up? Really influence on you, Glenn, that you were a fan of?
There's still a couple now. So obviously it's not just a case of growing up, but there's still a couple now that you kind of look at and you just think they're elite. They're probably right up there with the best of the business. And there's probably about 5 either kind of influences from the past or current commentators now that I look at. So a couple of them are actually from kind of that cricketing realm that I kind of spoke about earlier. So I got Mark Nicholas, who, was kind of the voice of that 2005 Ashes series, and Jonathan Agnew on Test Match Special. But in terms of football, Barry Davis, absolutely, a wordsmith, and just had a real gravitas in his voice that was elite, I would say. And then at the moment, Peter Drury and Darren Fletcher. I really like the way that Darren Fletcher commentates on a game. It's so relaxed and so casual, but he absolutely gets the key information across. So they're probably the ones at the moment that, I've either been influenced by or really look up to at the moment.
A couple more from me then. Glenn, in life, you have conversations, don't you? And then you come away from, you go, oh, I wish I'd said that. Do you have that in commentary? Do you look back and go, oh, I wish I'd said that when that happened?
No, not really. Like I said, I think such a part of commentary is being in the moment.
Yeah.
That you can't really reflect on that. Once the moment's gone, and you can't change it. No, I wouldn't say I look back on kind of any moments recently and have gone, oh, I wish I'd got that in.
Yeah. Okay. And then take me into the in the commentary box then on Saturday. You spoke earlier about nerves, and this is going to be a massive game. The atmosphere is going to be incredible. There's obviously a lot of emotion involved. Will you have to kind of consciously try and calm yourself down and not let yourself, because you want to give yourself somewhere to go, don't you, with commentary? You can't start out too excited.
No, I mean, I think my attitude is just going to be to treat it like any other game. I think that's what the players will be doing. I think that's what the coaching staff will be doing. Obviously, the fans are looking forward to this one, but I think if you get too excited by it, that's when kind of mistakes could potentially creep in. So I'm just going to carry on my normal routine. I've actually got my work Christmas due tomorrow night, and there will be, that will be a dry one, because obviously it's such a massive affair Saturday, and I kind of want to give myself the best opportunity to deliver the best that I can. But Saturday morning will be the routine. I'll probably do more preparation Saturday morning. I'll be up early. I'll grab a coffee. I'll look at train times and then catch the train to Ipswich. Probably, a big part of it will be soaking up the atmosphere, kind of milling around Portman Road and getting that feeling, so you can obviously convey that atmosphere back to those that are joining us from home or wherever. But then it will be kind of sitting down with Westy, catching up and just going from there, scripting those last little pieces, but very much treating it like any other game, really.
Any more from you boys before I ask Glenn the big question, which I'm not even sure I'm allowed to ask him, but I'm going to ask him anyway.
No, go on. Time for the big question.
Well, the big question, obviously, Glenn, you watch a lot of Ipswich Town football. You watch a lot of football. This is a huge game on Saturday. You're going to be calling for people all around the world. But what do you think is going to happen? What do you think the score is going to be?
Oh, that's a really difficult question, given it's a derby, Mark. I think honestly, derbies are impossible to predict. I know that's maybe sitting on the fence a little bit, but you only have to look, a great example, for example, and if you want parallels, you look at Tottenham v Chelsea earlier in the season. Tottenham flying under Postecoglou. Everyone had them as favourites going into that game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Chelsea stuttering, struggling under Pochettino. Lo and behold, Tottenham had 2 players sent off and end up Chelsea run away as 4-1 winners, and then you had high lines on the halfway line and all sorts. It was a mental game of football, and I think that's what derbies can be. I mean, form does go out the window. If I'm thinking with my head and it's like any other game, I'm probably looking at this and looking at Ipswich's form, the amount of goals they score at home, and I'm probably 1 or 2 goals in it, maybe a 2-1 or a 3-1. Ipswich like to score 3 at home, but given the fact that it is a derby and both sets of players will certainly be up for it, it really could go any which way. But obviously from kind of with my Ipswich hat on, I hope Town win.
Yeah, I hope personally that you get to use the line demolition derby at some point, Glenn, and that would be nice, wouldn't it? Thanks so much for joining us, Glenn. Boys, anything else for Glenn before he sets off and has a little sherry with Christmas tree behind him?
No, just good luck, Glenn. I hope it all goes as well as you hope it to, and look forward to seeing you as always.
Perfect.
Yeah,
thanks. See you Saturday. Yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for having me on, and I'll see you soon. Excellent.
Thanks, mate. Take care. There we go then, boys. 2 good guests. We're already 50 minutes into the show. What do you make of that, boys? Commentating is quite the skill, and the prep involved is a lot. And being able to pitch at the right point at the right time, something that takes quite a lot of skill and ability.
Yeah, it's an art form, isn't it? You've got to think about how often you tell the listeners what the score is. It's infuriating when you listen to the radio and you don't get a time check in the game, or you tell me what the score is if you've just tuned in halfway through in the car or whatever. Getting that rhythm with your co-commentator, knowing sometimes when to talk and when not to talk. It's it's a real art form, and I admire those guys that do it. Brenna Woolley is a good friend of mine. Give him a mention as well for BBC Suffolk. Those guys are very good at what they do.
Ever fancy it, Ross?
Yeah, I think I'll struggle, boys, to be fair. Definitely with some of the names. Definitely Watford's team on Tuesday. I think they actually gave us sheets to how to pronounce things, and AJ actually went through it with me, and I was still struggling with that, even it tells you, in brackets and the breaking up of the name. I struggled. So, and speaking of AJ, we've got a question, actually. Where's AJ? Is he watching Azerbaijan 3rd Division?
Well, as I say, he had a note from his mum to say that he couldn't come tonight. I think he may be at football. I'm not entirely sure. I know he's got something he has to do with his girlfriend. So make of that what you will. I know she is a big football fan of the old Ammers who are playing tonight. So I suspect he may be watching West Ham, but I don't actually know. But there we go.
Believe that is where he is tonight. Yeah.
There we go then. Boys, should we move on? Shall we have something of a little quiz, Rossi?
Ooh. Yeah, we can do. Let me just get something that needs to be worn for this. So I'm bringing out the old jacket because why not? So get your pens and paper at the ready, please, boys. Anyone get involved in the comments as always. 4 questions plus a tiebreaker. The strike does make its return, and yeah, got 4 questions about the Norwich and Ipswich derby, obviously. So test your knowledge, boys. As I said, play at home, everybody. Play at home.
Have we got any music, Ross?
We can find some music. Shall we? Actually, should we play the theme tune? Play
The theme tune? Absolutely. Play the
Let's
theme
do
tune.
it. Let's do it.
Hello and welcome to another edition of The Strike. Brought to you by the greatest quiz show host on planet Earth, producer Ross.
Are we allowed to play that still? Randy, you know, he's gone, isn't he?
I mean, I think this is the extended version.
Stop it.
That's going to go on for a minute. I don't know. I don't know where we stand with the royalties and indeed the contract. But I guess it because he did it when he was here. It's still our intellectual property. So that's what I'm saying, Rossi. But you've got some questions for us.
I do. Let's jump right into it then. Question 1 is: what is the most common scoreline in the derby? Is it 1-0, 2-0, or 2-1? What do you reckon, then, boys? Let me get my my answers up so I know the answer, so I can give a point to everyone. Everyone get in the comments.
Is this to both sides? So
Yeah, just both sides. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna admit it. I couldn't be asked to go through every result. If Ipswich won 2-0, blah blah, 2-1, blah blah. But I know all the results. So there's also a little fun fact. There's only been ever 6 goalless draws in the derby.
That is
hopefully that doesn't happen because that'd be boring, wouldn't it? You don't want to see a boring goalless draw in a derby. You want goals. You want goals. Okay, what do you reckon then, boys? 1-0, 2-0, or 2-1?
I'm just guessing, really. I've gone. Can you see mine? What is mine?
Yeah, I think you said 2-1 with squiggle line.
2-1. Yeah, that's it.
Stu's gone 2-0. I'm happy you've both done different answers. We've got a few other, of course, comments. A lot of people have gone 2-1 as well. So let's do the answer. The correct answer is 2-1.
Yes, get it. Come on.
It's the point. So there we go. 1-0 to the Heath Moister. General. Question 2 is on John Walk. He is the leading goal scorer in the derby. How many competitive goals has he scored against Norwich in 20 games he's played? I think he scored a few times in like testimonials and maybe friendlies, but this is like 20 competitive games. How many goals do you reckon? Let me have a little look at the comments. No.
I should know this.
Yeah. Keep the scores, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, in the comments, because I will probably forget, but I shouldn't forget. It's because 1-0 was to Stu. People are going 6.
Well, you've already forgotten because it's 1-0 to me, but there we go.
There we go. 20 games. What do you reckon? Little fun fact as well. He scored on his East Anglian derby. So not too sure from John. Yeah, debut. Yeah, debut. Yeah. What do you reckon, boys?
I've gone for 7.
7.
Oh, I've gone high. I thought he'd been quite prolific. I've gone 14.
14. And I forgot to mention, obviously, if you get it bang on, you get double the points. No one's got a bang on, though.
Oh.
So, whatever. Correct answer is 9. So, Stu is the closest with the point. So, there we go. 1-1 going into question 3. Question 3 is more of a modern question. And it's the last time the derby was played at Portman Road. And it's about Guillaume Edwards' goal. Of course, formerly my boy back in the day, of course, on the podcast.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
How many boys have you had, Ross? Because there's quite a lot.
A lot of boys. Anyway, move on from that. Question 3, though, is on Guillaume Edwards. Who set him up for his goal in the 1-1 draw against Norwich at Portman Road in 2018? Was it John Nolan, John Walters, or Jonas Knudsen?
I've wiped these games from my mind.
I had to watch the game back to remember because obviously I don't really want to watch back the last decade or so Norwich Ipswich games because for obvious reasons. A lot of good comments. People gone Walters, Nolan.
That's when John Walters went off injured, didn't he? I
did.
can't remember how
Final
early
ever
that
game.
was.
Final ever game for the club.
Popped his Achilles, didn't he?
But his career. He retired after that game.
I've got my answer.
Okay.
I'm going to go with John Nolan.
John Nolan.
I've gone for, you can't see it because of the light. I've gone for Knudsen because I just don't, mainly because his name seems to stick out a little bit in there. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, because Knudsen has scored, a few times in a derby. Now, this is interesting. You're both wrong. It's John Walters who Knudsen had to basically over the top, and John Walters nodded it down, and Graham Edwards finished well. So there we go. Interesting. Going into the final question, and it's on the Canary Crusher himself, Danny Haynes, and it's about squad numbers. Now, this is Hutchie's ball game. I think AJ likes squad numbers as well, actually. I know you two don't really care. So it'll be interesting. I know there's a few people watching that they love their squad numbers. And Danny Haynes had two different squad numbers during his time at the club. Which were they? Was it 14, 25, 16 or 21, or 18 and 29? So, or 25, 16 or 21, 18 or 29. So when he broke through, he had the first number first, obviously, and then the next season he then got a different number. Of course, he scored 4 goals in the derby. Danny Haynes, obviously some iconic ones. So there we go.
Just out of interest, Rossi, how are people doing in the comments? Are people largely getting these right? Are we?
Yeah, most people are doing pretty well. Yeah, don't look at the comments, boys, but everyone's got it right so far. I think. Yeah, everyone's got it right. So don't look at the comments, boys.
I think I can remember one of the numbers he wore. So
I can't. So I'm just gonna go for it.
Okay, so this is
I've gone 14 and 25.
18.
I'm wearing 18. Pretty sure I can remember 18.
Someone is correct, and it is, of course, Stuart Watson. So Stu has won, but as always, Stu, are you going to gamble?
Absolutely not.
Why would you?
Yeah, well, it's pointless. So that's it then for the strike. But no, we are going to do tiebreaker because we have to. We have to because people in the comments are screaming at us, tiebreaker. And we're going to do it because it's about Town winning against Norwich, which has not happened for a while. But how many times has Town won against Norwich at Portman Road in 52 competitive games? So there's been 52 games at Portman Road. How many times have Town won? Obviously, not since 2009, which I'm sorry, guys, I had to bring up because we have to.
I know because I was doing a bit of research earlier. I think Town still have the edge all time over Norwich. I think they've won one more game all time than Norwich have. But how many have they won at home?
I'm not sure that's the case. I've got here, randomly, the first ever Kings of Anglia magazine that we published. So I've been sorting through these from autumn 2016. And it says here, and the derby score is Town 40, Norwich 39.
Oh.
And there would have been games since then, which was probably seen Norwich overtake. So
the thing that I saw earlier definitely had Town 43.
There's
Norwich
a lot of weird
42.
stats out there, like different websites shit. So I've got this from a good source.
Okay.
So I hope I'm right. If I'm wrong, blame that source. But yeah. Anyway,
how many times
you have to get it bang on to win, obviously.
games at Portman Road.
And we look at the comments. Some close ones there, some really good ones. Once again, guys, you've got opportunity to the viewers. You've got opportunity to actually Google. Don't do that. That's naughty. It's very naughty. Don't do that. But yeah, tiebreaker time. Can Heathy steal it from Stu?
I've been optimistic. Oh, I've not been optimistic actually compared to Stu. Where is my camera? There we go. I've gone 30.
36.
I hope when you're going to get bang on, Heath. I thought when you said you weren't being that. It's 24.
Only 24 games.
Yeah. 9 draws, 19 defeats. So, pretty good.
Deflated now.
So Stu, you won. The speech as we wrap up the strike. Thanks everyone who'd taken part. Obviously, you gambled, which you didn't want to gamble, but it gambled what Stu, because he didn't get a bang on.
I'd like to thank my family. I'd like to thank Mark Heath for giving me this opportunity. I've got nothing else for you. Thanks. I'd like to thank Barry Cotter.
Yeah, sadly, I don't have that with me right now, but just think of Barry Cotter's voice, his Irish voice, and he's just basically outroed the strike, and we go back to Heathy.
Thank you, Ross. Thanks very much for that. So we come to an hour now, friends. We're going to start getting into the meat of the game. And have we got some questions we could take, Ross, before we move on to chats around team selection and moving towards our predictions, etc.?
I'll have to go back. Obviously, a lot of people have commented on the quiz, so there's a lot of answers there. Someone said that my wife wants a Wednesday night jacket back, so I guess I'll get that sorted with her. Good old Karen, I assume. I don't know. But I know there was one question about, obviously, the Harry Clark and Brandon Williams debate. I'm sure we'll get onto that later. I know someone brought that up, but at the moment, yeah, let us know, viewers.
Absolutely, yeah. Get your questions in as we start to talk more about the game now, focus on the game. Let's start there then, shall we, Stu? Shall we start talking about team selection for Ipswich Town? We heard a lot about the Norwich team there and what might happen from Sam. But in terms of Town, and here's the question, Jason Joseph, who starts, Williams or Clark? There's probably maybe two selection poses, is there? That's clearly the main one, and maybe something around Tuanzebe and Wolfenden. But shall we start with Williams or Clark, mate? Who do you think will start?
I think this is a relatively easy Ipswich Town team to predict, despite the fact that there was 5 changes to freshen things up at Watford in midweek. I think this will revert to, in general, has been sort of considered the strongest 11 throughout the promotion push and the start to this season. Right back is probably the biggest question mark there, and I think, as Andy says in the comments there, that it will be Harry Clark that gets the nod. If you'd gone back maybe a month or so, Brandon Williams looked to be the man in pole position, but Harry Clark has, after a sort of fairly indifferent start to the season, has hit really good form in the last few games. And in midweek, Ipswich were getting done down Watford's left-hand side in that first half. Brandon Williams comes off at half-time. Harry Clark came on, and things improved there. So, allied with the fact that he's an Ipswich boy as well, and he's going to be chomping at the bit to play in this one, I think it will be Harry Clark at right back.
You agree with that, Rossi?
Yeah, to be fair, both of them are going to be up for this. So either way, we're going to have a right back that is going to be maybe too hot-headed. So be careful, boys. Don't go too mad. We don't want you to get sent off. We don't want that. But yeah, it's a position that is, it's all to play for, really, isn't it? Because 1 week one does really well, the other week another week. So it's competition, which is good to see in the squad. But yeah, they've both got irons in the fire for this game because they've got that, Harry Clark, Ipswich boy, first ever derby. Brandon Williams, got the beef with Norwich. So yeah, but I'm steering more to Clark, especially with his performance at Watford. I thought he did really well, and yeah, he's going to be well up for this.
Do we know? And I haven't asked this, boys. I don't know. Have we got any indication as to whether that was just a tactical thing on Tuesday night, or whether there was, because clearly Williams has had a few injury issues as well, hasn't he?
Wasn't asked post-match, actually. So we're going to be speaking to Kieran McKenna in his pre-match press conference tomorrow afternoon. We'll find out a bit more on that. But I would imagine that the fact that it happened at half-time and the way the game was panning out, it was a tactical one. But we'll confirm that tomorrow. Okay,
elsewhere in the team then, Stewie, are there any other debates? I mean, I mentioned there Wolfenden and Axel. We've got an A there, says Hutchinson for Broadhead. That would be a shock. Anything else you can see in terms of a conversation around people starting, Stewie?
No, I think there'll come a time when how are we saying this? Tuanzebe. I can't remember what Glenn said earlier on. He's still in the background there. I don't think Axel, I'm going to call him Axel. I don't think Axel will start for this one. There'll come a time, I think, where he'll get in and stay in, probably around the time that Cameron Burgess goes off for the Asian Cup in the new year. But I think they'll still tread carefully a little bit with him wrapping up in cotton wool because they need him for that period in the new year. I think Wolfie will come back in for this one. I think Axel was probably a horses for courses selection at Watford because they're very powerful and athletic in attack. So yeah, as I say, I think it'll be Wolfenden and Burgess, the two centre halves. Davis nailed on left back. Morsey and Luongo nailed on central midfielders. As tough as it will be on Amari Hutchinson, who has never let them down whenever he started, I think Wes Burns has to start on the right wing. Chaplin, Broadhead, and George Hurst up front. And then Amari to be a potential weapon off the bench. As always, we know a bulk of Ipswich's goals have come from men off the bench. So who knows? Maybe a hero could be stepping off the bench.
It's almost as if you knew my next question, Stewie. We have Derby Day heroes, don't we? Alex Matthey, Danny Haynes, Brian Gunn. Who do you think might emerge as the Derby Day hero? If, as all the stats and the form and the table suggest, Ipswich Town do win this game, who do you think we'll be talking about after it as the kind of new canary crusher? We'll come up with something new and better, but the kind of hero, if you like.
Do you know what the great thing is that you would be really, obviously you're going to be really pleased whoever it is who's the hero, but I think there's so many reasons to root for so many of these players in this team. We've come to know and love them over such a prolonged period of time. If it's Wolfenden or Clark as Ipswich boys would be incredible. I don't know if Harry Clark could hold his emotions if he were to score in this one. You saw the way he reacted with the goal against Blackburn. I think he might internally combust if he were to score in this match. But Chaplin, Burns would be really popular goal scorers. Nathan Broadhead seems to be the man for big occasions and big moments, especially at Portman Road. So I couldn't rule that out. Sam Morsey, Captain Fantastic, if he could repeat his scenes from Tuesday night. I think if you polled Ipswich fans, they'd all come up with lots of different players, but I'm seeing in the comments here lots of Wolfenden and Clark shouts as Ipswich boys.
There was a big shout there from Harvey. Ross, can you just flash that up again? Our Sweet Welsh Prince, friend of the show. Harvey says, hot take, Cameron Burgess header from a Leif Davis corner. Quaw. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Jason Joseph, Clark 100% to score the winner. Imagine the fist pump we're going to get from Harry Clark if and when Town win this game. He's going to really give it some. He's going to
out for 3 months with a dislocated shoulder.
Snaps his elbow ligaments. Yeah. Rossi, what are you saying then, hero-wise? Stu said the entire team, which is more of a Ross Hall's answer, if you don't mind me saying.
Apologies.
Who do you think that might just stand out above all others, Rossi? And are there another one here on the hero debate? Are there any you think we're maybe not talking about? And here I'm thinking maybe.
Well, sorry, just to jump in. I know I've covered the whole team, but I didn't know if the question was who could be and who do I think will be. If you put me on the spot to name one, and he's probably flown under the radar a bit in this debate, is I think it would Nathan Broadhead. Because I think this is the sort of game where he's that little inside left pockets of space is the sort of player that can hurt Norwich. And he just seems, look at the way he celebrates goals when Ipswich score, even when it's him who doesn't score. I think he's the sort of guy that, as I said there, he produces big moments, and so many of his big moments have come in front of the Ipswich fans. So he's the one if you pushed me, I think he might be the one.
Lock it in, Nathan Broadhead, Derby Day hero. We'll have to come up with some sort of moniker for him if indeed that turns out to be the case. Rossi, your thoughts on a potential leg end in the making on Saturday?
Yeah, obviously it's the Ipswich boys, but I think that's a bit boring answer, isn't it? Everyone's going to say that. Obviously it'd be great if one of them does score the winner. But then does that mean we go really deep into the game where they're like, we need to find that late winner? I don't know if I want that. I want us to be, all sorted, done and dusted on the hour mark. Do you know what? He's already a hero in a lot of Town fans' mind, but Connor Chaplin, I think this game is made for him. I think he's going to be well up for this, and I think he's going to find some space and he's going to score a trademark Connor Chaplin goal. Maybe that's my early prediction for first goal scorer. I think he's going to score first, and he may score a brace because why not? So I think Connor Chaplin's going to be the boy to do it. But I think, as Stu said, I think the whole team are just going to hopefully be heroes on a day to finally beat them up the road.
James,
I just saw this. Yeah, sorry.
Carol, mate.
I just saw this pop up from James, which I think probably sums up my feelings. The reason I was sort of scrambling to pick a single hero is he's saying, I don't see there being a winner as such. Confident there'll be more than one goal between the two sides. And the way Ipswich share their goals out, you're hopeful that there isn't just a man, a moment that sort of decides this game, and that Ipswich maybe can share a few goals around.
Andy Crackers Cracknell there saying, I think Mass will be a massive player in the centre of the park, will be the hero, win the battle in the midfield and keep a calm head. How about a left field choice, boys? How about someone like Amari Hutchinson? The fearlessness of youth, the razzle dazzle when he comes off the bench, maybe in a scenario where Town are looking for a winner. He's a sort of player who could do that, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely he is. Yeah, he's gone to Southampton, and you sort of think, well, that's a big occasion for him to go and get was that his first start for Ipswich, Southampton away, and the way he dealt with being manhandled after the alleged dive, and the way he dealt with the crowd after that, and he's just looked so mature and improved game by game, and a backflip celebration in a derby would be something to behold, wouldn't it? That would be an image that will live for a long time.
I want that for the front of the verdict Monday. Backflip celebration, lovely. How do you think, boys? Before we move on to predictions, Stu, how do you see this game actually playing out? And talk to me a little bit about the Kieran McKenna factor as well, because on paper, and the Norwich boys said this, Ipswich score goals for fun at home. They also concede goals. Norwich concede a hell of a lot of goals away from home, but they also score a lot of goals away from home. So how do you see this one playing out, Stu? Can you see Norwich coming to try and stifle and frustrate? Will they surely won't try and go toe to toe with Town. And the McKenna factor is a big one in terms of his bespoke plan for every game, isn't it?
Yeah, well, from what Sam was telling us at the very start, from a Norwich perspective, is that it's gone increasingly pragmatic under David Wagner, and they've gone back to basics, and it's not been very fun to watch. So that sounds like they'll probably come and be fairly defence minded, and try and get Ipswich to break them down, which, you know, the good thing is Ipswich, I think, prefer it when teams go toe to toe and give them space in an end to end game, but they have shown that they've got ways of breaking through. They've certainly had a lot of practice of sort of facing low blocks in League One, and have become more adept at facing that. So I think, you know, in general terms, that's the sort of game that it will be. Norwich sort of being fairly compact and deep and trying to hit Ipswich on the counter attack. But if you look at the score lines throughout the season, everything does point to goals in this game, doesn't it?
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, Rossi? The McKenna factor going into this game, the calm head, while all the emotion and the pressure and the noise and the atmosphere kind of going on around him.
Yeah, obviously the last time we had the derby, we had a former Norwich manager in the dugout, Mr. Paul Lambert, obviously.
He did not keep his head.
No, he didn't. He did not. And that was a big factor going into that game at Carrow Road. Obviously, before that, we had Paul Hurst, who was, a new young manager coming into the dugout, his first derby. And of course, before that, we had Mick McCarthy, who, probably, I don't know if he liked derbies or not, Mick McCarthy. Stu, what was he? I don't think he did, really. I don't think he really cared.
There was always a bit of a withering reference to, well, it's not Celtic Rangers, and I'm not sure if he kind of put the East Anglian derby on the same pedestal as the rest of us in this part of the world. Obviously, when you talk about Mick and the derby, you instantly think of the Foxtrot Oscar reference he always used with the up yours gesture towards the away fans that day at Carrow Road. A lot's gone on in these fixtures, isn't it, when you talk about Lambert there as well? But in reference to the question, if Ipswich if any manager is going to get his players playing the game and not the occasion, it's Kieran McKenna. I think it's been quite telling that it's been a host of sort of Norwich players taking to social media in the last 24 hours, talking about bring on the derby and talking in quite emotional terms, and we haven't seen any of that, I don't think, from Ipswich players, and I think that will be well thought out. I think it will be that sort of fairly boring but important mantra of it's just another game, it's just another 3 points. They'll have prepared like they do for any other game. McKenna post-match on Tuesday night, when it was brought up about, finally we can talk about Norwich now, gave his very stock answer about we'll respect their threats, but it's all about us, and we'll prepare as we usually do. And I genuinely believe him in that respect. So I think the McKenna sort of measured, calm factor is a big one going into this.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, Stu. As you say, we've seen even Wagner say, essentially, yeah, Town have done well, but that counts for nothing. And we've seen Jonathan Rowe using some industrial language on Twitter today, haven't we? Time for the effing derby. And as you say, Stu, there's been none of that sort of chat coming out of the Ipswich Town side of things. Right then, friends, we're going to start now to move towards our predictions. So if you want to leather some into the comments, I saw one from Maddie Ross, which I think is worth highlighting again. Dane Scarlett will come on in the 75th minute and score to make it 3-2 Town. You can hold me to that, says Maddie Reader. That would be dramatic. We have actually got some, before we get to our predictions, friends, we've got a couple of special prediction videos. And first of all, we are blessed. We've got Ed Sheeran as clearly a high level celebrity Ipswich Town fan. We've got the likes of Fabio Wardley, upcoming rising heavyweight, and we've also, friends, got Arnold Allen, who is a big star in the world of UFC, currently training in camp in Montreal for a big fight January 20th. Christmas is cancelled for Arnie. He told me he's getting up to watch the game. I think they're 5 hours behind, so he'll be up early on Saturday morning to watch it from Canada. He sent us a little prediction, Rossi. Do you want to play that in, see what Arnie makes of it all?
What's happening, guys? It's the Ipswich-Norwich derby this weekend. I think Ipswich are going to get the win. I think it's going to be a bit of a back and forth. I'm going to go 3-2 for Ipswich. I think Connor Chaplin's going to get some goals. Good luck to the boys. Go out and smash it. And this is the season. We're going to get promoted. It's looking great. I wish I could be there. I'm in the middle of camp, and that's why I look like shit.
Arnie sporting the black eye there. If you're not watching the video, listening back to the recording, he fights January 20th. He's gone early though, boys. He's gone with the promotion word, the P word. He's saying 3-2 to Town. Mr. Hoobs is saying Town 4-1. We also have Chris Taggart 3-0 Hurst Brace. I like the sound of these boys. We also have the thoughts of an absent king, Rossi. AJ has sent us a little video message which has definite vibes of someone picking up an award at the Brit Awards from the other side of the country.
Hi guys, and hello Town fans watching along as well. Really sorry I can't be there tonight, but really excited for this one. My first derby covering the club. Been to a few before. Obviously been a while since Town have won one. I'm not going to tell Mock how old I was when that happened. Don't want him getting angry like he can sometimes do when we talk about that. But this is as good a chance as any. I'm going to lock in my prediction. 3-1 Ipswich. Connor Chaplin to score first because he's really going to be up for this one, I think. So looking forward to it, and I'll see you guys there on Saturday. Of course, press conferences tomorrow as well, so a lot to look forward to.
3-1 Chaplin, says AJ. Sammy Wills 4-0 Town. Chaplin double Hurst and Morsey in front of the North Stand. These are all very optimistic, winning, big wins. 2-0 Town, says Rob Hughes. Goal in each half. 5-1, Jason Joseph says. Hurst hat-trick. I really hope there's a scoreline like that because I'm desperate to use Demolition Derby 2 as a headline on the front of the verdict come Monday. Boys, shall we start to move towards predictions? AJ, I think, is AJ still top of the prediction league, Rossi?
Yeah, by 2 points. So I got the I didn't get the maximum, but I got 4 points for the Watford prediction right. So I think on 29 points, he's on 31. You boys are somewhere.
We're so far below. I mean, AJ said a couple of weeks ago it's starting to become a league of two halves, and not in a good way for us, Stewie. Rob Stevens there, 3-1 Town, Wolfie header first. Rossi, you're next in the hierarchy then. I want you to not only offer a prediction, but also I want you to show your full thinking, please. And don't just say, which you often use as a justification, because why not?
Stu, what are you going for, mate? I'm joking. I've gone for, this sounds boring, but I think it's just get it done, boys. I just want us to win. 2-0 is what I want to go for. And as someone mentioned, maybe goals in each half. That would be nice. I think Connor Chaplin to score a brace because why not? He's going to be...
You did use it. Amazing.
Sorry. But I think 2-0. I just think that's a perfect way to win the derby. Clean sheet, get the job done. It may not sound exciting. 2 goals is still, 2 goals at Bourne Road. Obviously, there's been a lot of goals scored at home this year, so that's why people are predicting 3-2s maybe, and maybe 3-1s and stuff. That's what AJ's predicted. But I'll be happy with a 2-0 scoreline. Vaz to get a clean sheet, and we'll be all happy. And there's no rush on their deadline with the report, so the report can just be done and dusted, and then it's there, and everyone can enjoy the first win since 2009.
Okay, so we've got 3-1 Chaplin, 2-0 Chaplin. Stewie, how are you feeling about this, old friend? Toiling at the bottom of the table like myself. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, like two drunks just
slap
windmilling at each other outside the kebab shop at 3 a.m. I'm feeling pretty good about this, and I know there's the whole cliche about form can go out the window for the derby. Does it though? Like I know that you can find some odd references here and there for that happening, but in general, like how many times have Everton beaten Liverpool over the last 20 years? When Norwich were the firm favourites going into these games, that tended to show over the course of it. So
yeah,
taking all the emotion out of it, and the fact that I've said I think McKenna is someone that will play the game and not the occasion, I do really fancy Ipswich going into this, and they score goals at home. So with that in mind, I'm going to go for 4-2 Ipswich, and I'm going to go for 4 different goal scorers as well.
You naughty boy!
Bonus prediction.
Who's going to score first, though? Did you say?
I'll go with Nathan Broadhead. And do you know what would be? Do you know what a lovely goal scorer would be that I just thought about? Caden Jackson, the man, the only man that was involved probably in the last time Ipswich played Norwich in that relegation season. I don't think there'll be anyone else, is there? Janoy Danassian, who's not on the scene at the moment. So Caden Jackson, that would sort of complete his sort of his arc, wouldn't it? Stepping off the bench just to round things off.
That would be lovely. And I've seen some big score predictions, by the way, scrolling through while we've been talking. I particularly enjoyed, I think it was Ian Wallbank who said 17-1 with Hladky scoring a penner. There we go. Vaz scoring a penalty at 16-1. I'll be up for that, Ian. That'd be quite nice. I want, basically what I want is, the Rocky IV, where Lou Gossett Jr. is the second for Apollo Creed, as he's getting hammered into an early grave by what was his name? I can't remember his name now. Ivan Drago, and he's got the towel and he's screaming at the ref, "Stop the damn fight!" That's what I want. That sort of feeling on Saturday at Portman Road, and Town are just absolutely schooling Norwich, and to use an Andy Warren term, they're stepping on their throat, which I get the feeling that they might do this weekend. In terms of prediction, friends, I've been going back and forth between being wildly optimistic and being slightly more. I don't want to say negative.
Reserve.
Yeah. My trade-off is this. I think Town are going to win, and I think they're going to win by quite a big margin. But I almost don't want to say it.
That's how I felt.
Yeah, because that then A, leaves me out there to be shot at if that doesn't happen. And B, I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to jinx it because we haven't won for 14 years.
Jinxes don't happen under Kieran McKenna. After international breaks, playing on Sky, the curses are gone now. This is just another one to sweep aside, Mark.
Okay, bollocks. So I'm going for it. I'm going to say Ipswich Town 5, Norwich City 2.
Ooh.
Right? I think you have to look at the stats again. You go back to the stats, take emotion out of it. Norwich concede a lot of goals. They also score goals on the road. We know Town score goals at home, and we know they also concede goals at home. So sense suggests that there's going to be quite a lot of goals in this game, but I just think Ipswich Town are going to be too much for Norwich City. Listen to the Pinken boys talking about it earlier. They have not fared well against the better sides in this division. Go on, Stu.
Even though they beat Sheffield Wednesday, was it 3-1 in the end on last night? They conceded 21 shots on goal against Sheffield Wednesday in midweek. Regular listeners will know that I'm not a massive fan of XG and all that sort of stuff, but Alex is right. Our colleague Alex is right. It can show you some underlying trends, and they concede chances. Norwich. My only slight thing that downgrades this idea of a goal fest is what Sam told us at the very start, that they are, I think, maybe gone back to basics, and they might take a more negative sort of damage limitation approach, which may limit it being the sort of goal fest that we're perhaps all thinking it might be. But we'll see. 5-2, my friend. That's a big shout. I didn't think anyone would top the 4-2.
I just feel, I've got the feeling, boys. All the feeling around the club, clearly incredible. I mean, here's another stat going to this game. You're like, Ipswich Town, as it stands on Thursday, December the 14th, are only 11 points off the point total that Norwich achieved last season. That's mental. That's insane. And again, shows a kind of, perhaps you have to say, a golfing class. And I just feel with everything around this game, the 14 years, Kieran McKenna, calm, sensible, logical, got a plan for everything. The players who are going to be absolutely up for it, like you would not believe. The coach greeting outside the game, there's going to be that kind of special feeling around it. And I just get the sense that if Town, and they are going to fly out the traps, if they can get an early goal, it could end up being a beautiful, beautiful day at Portman Road for all of us. And what a way that would be to end the curse. So I hope I haven't jinxed it by going big. We're all saying obviously Town wins. And just to recap, AJ 3-1 Chaplin. That's probably the one you take the most, pay the most attention to, because he's top of the table. What's that? Sean O'Halloran 5-2 as odds of 66-1.
Slap a tenner on that.
Pay off all my Christmas presents. That'd be lovely. Rossi's going 2-0 Chaplin. So those two are maybe the guides, because they've been getting it right. 4-2 Broadhead, says Stu, and I've gone 5-2, and I'm going to say Chaplin, because Chaplin's on one of those rich scoring runs, which he seems to go on, and also he's going to be absolutely desperate to play well. Right then, friends, we're coming now to the end of the show. So we've talked about the game. We've heard from our friends over in Norwich. We've heard from the voice of Ipswich Town, Glenn Wood. I really enjoyed that. There's one more person, though, Rossi, I want us to hear from before we take our leave today. And it's a man who has written his name into Ipswich Town folklore. He's a man who's been both a player and manager at Ipswich Town, and he's a man that you tracked down for a very special podcast earlier this week. He's not someone we've spoken to since he left for reasons tied up in the paper, not us, but there were some issues there. But you were the man who finally tracked him down and convinced him to talk to us, and you got a brilliant interview out of him, mate. I really enjoyed it. And obviously you spoke to him about the derby. That video is available to watch if you're a subscriber. Go and watch that now. But you asked him, didn't you, Ross? Set it up for us then, this video, because you asked him about the derby, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. As for most of this live, I've been nodding my head because I've been, agreeing with everyone and been enjoying it. And just like Jim Adjil in interview, I just nod my head. But I said he's very similar to Sam Morsey back in the day. Jim was the one who just wanted the ball, a leader on the pitch, and obviously Jim got a lot of yellow cards and stuff like that. And of course, Morsey is going to be leading this team out. And I just wanted to ask Jim, some advice, for the Town players, like Harry Clark, like Luke Wolverton, who are going to be pumped up for this. And Jim's got a message to the players and also just the fans to hear from him as well. So over to you, Jim.
Control your emotions. Play with real focus and concentration. What happens is you can get caught up in the occasion. You can get caught up in the emotion of the supporters. But you have to really detract yourself from that. You have to really focus on your jobs, your roles and responsibilities, and believe, trust your instincts in games like that. Trust your beliefs. Play with freedom. Lots of these games you get stuck in too much pressure, but you have to throw the shackles off and you have to be focused every second of every minute of the game, but just play with confidence and the confidence that they've shown. And if they do that, I'm sure they'll come out on top. There's no question that they've done that and proved that through the course of this season. So my advice to them is, yes, control, obviously it's emotion, but control your emotions, play with that focus and concentration, and again, trust the manager, trust his tactics, and believe in yourself.
Lovely stuff from Jim. He talks about controlling his emotions, or your emotions. And Stewie, by way of throwing to future content around the derby, we've already mentioned him on this show, a man who didn't control his emotions in a derby. Paul Lambert, another guy we've not spoken to since he left. Slightly awkward again in that we did actually call for him to be sacked. But you caught up with him after, I don't know how many years has it been since I think he's still under contract at Ipswich Town, isn't he?
Yeah, well, his contract, the new contract, the surprise contract he got on New Year's Day, wasn't it? Runs till 2025. I'm sure there was a decent payoff that's meant that's not the case now. But yes, I've managed to catch up with Paul Lambert. So Ross has spoken to the last manager that masterminded an Ipswich win against Norwich, and I've spoken to the last Ipswich manager in charge of an East Anglian derby. It was a good chance to catch up with Paul. What's he been up to over the last, coming up for 3 years since he left the Ipswich job? So found out what he's been up to. Got some reflections on his time in charge of Ipswich, and I've spoken to him about some East Anglian derby memories, including that touchline fracas at Carrow Road. So that will be on our websites at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. Give that a read.
A surprising revelation from Mr. Lambert as well, which I enjoyed, around that fracas on the touchline. Right then, friends, on my plan, I've got our final thoughts. Rossi, are there any more comments we can flash up while we start to wrap up this show? Stu, have you got any final thoughts you wanna show? The big porker, says Rob Hughes. Afraid he is way out of our price range now, Rob. For a single show appearance, astronomical. Warwick Long is over in Australia. Good lad, Warwick. Great show team. Love your work. Thank you, Warwick. Much appreciated. Final thoughts, Stewie, as we head into this potentially historic, given the nature of the domination of Norwich and the history of the rivalry, game at Portman Road on Saturday.
Can't wait, and I'm going to get there nice and early, and I want to be out there for that greeting of the team coach, because I still think that's my favourite memory of the last 12 months. All these fantastic results and performances and everything, but that moment building up to the Exeter game was just magic, with the flags and Ipswich fans, young and old, soaking in what was just such a moment in time with the blue flares and everything. So if they can match that, which I think the players have said that they want and they're looking forward to, I think that, that could really play its part in the day and the occasion. So yeah, bring it on.
Mr. Who says, great live KOA, do it more often. Like it. We like to keep these to special moments. We want it, as I said before, want to keep it as like an event sort of vibe. So we'll do these when there's something special, I think, going on. And it doesn't get much more special than this game, does it? Jack Lennon, sensational from KOA, as always, from Brisbane, Australia. Thank you for the epic coverage. Good on you, Jack. And thank you, Wendy. Lovely way to spend an evening. Rossi, give me your final thoughts.
Just bloody win, please, Town. Just win. It's been 14 years in the making. There's going to be some young Town fans who have never seen Town win a derby. We've got so many new generations who have, got season tickets now because they've got a team to be proud of. They've got players to look up to now and idolise. They've got a manager now that is just so passionate and so calm and everything. And yeah, just do it. If there's any players listening, just do it for the fans, because it's just such an important, to win a derby, and because it's been so long. I can't wait for it. It's gonna be my proper official derby covering it for us. I think I was there for the Norwich game, at Carrow Road. I was in the press box with the boys, but I was still very much, young Roscoe, still very hello, I'm here. Now I'm going to be well up for it, and got the great KOA army who do game day and do some other great stuff. It's just going to be a great occasion, and just enjoy it, everyone. And hopefully after 9 minutes of football, we can celebrate a win and be top of the league if we win as well, boys. Again, because Leicester I think play Monday, so bring it on. And that coach Roy was going to be insane again, I'm sure. Hopefully that don't bite us in the butt though if we lose, and they'll go, you've done all that and you lost. But no, it's going to be a great day, and bring it on.
And please don't get put Sam Morsey as well. I'll just throw that one into the mix as well. We're talking about players controlling their emotions and staying disciplined. We'd quite like you available for Leeds away and Leicester if possible.
Yeah, I've said this before on the podcast. To be honest, of those games, if you miss as Leicester, that's the one I'm not really bothered about, because that's the one that, in the grand scheme of things, means the least for Town's promotion chances this season. Doesn't really matter if they don't finish top of the table, as long as they're in that top two, that gap to third. Right then, friends, all that's left then for me to say is thank you very much for joining us. A reminder, this is brought to you in association with Manscaped. Use the code KOA at manscaped.com for 20% off and free delivery on all your various things that you can trim your body, various areas of your body with. Hamish Mitchell, listening from Los Angeles and about to go to the airport to fly over to see this game. Thanks so much for your wonderful coverage every week. I never miss your pods. Please win this Saturday. Safe travels, Hamish. That's a lovely message. A reminder, friends, obviously, that there is still one more day before the game, and there's a press conferences tomorrow, and we'll be bringing you a final pod of the week after that press conference. After all the talking is done, we'll bring you a final press conference just to wrap up and give you the final info, our final thoughts. And also remember, friends, that at the moment, Christmas offer, if you want all this excellent content, and this is free, we're giving this to you free as a Christmas present, but our Christmas offer to you is £3 for 3 months of Ipswich Town coverage, which you can get right the way through the month. And obviously that takes you considerably into the rest of Town season. And hopefully you find something of value in that offer. Right then, friends, any final thoughts? Because I want to put a cap on this.
I would love it if we beat them. Just could go full Kevin Keegan to finish it off.
Rossi?
I think that's the perfect way to end it, mate. Yeah, just enjoy everyone and bring it on.
Okay, right then, friends. As we end the show then, I invite you all, I just want you to take a moment to just sit there and appreciate how far we've come. Maybe close your eyes, friends. Just enjoy it. What can you hear? What can you feel? That's your heart beating, friends. That's what you want. The feeling of nerves jangling in your gut. You need those. They're important. The blood, the electricity pumping through your veins, the hair standing up on the back of your neck. 14 years, friends. 14 years we've waited for this. All we've ever asked for is an opportunity, and we're going to get that on Saturday. So let me ask you, friends, as we end this show, where would you rather be than right here, right now? We'll see you at Portman Road.